It was 2 in the morning, and I was still awake. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the heater and the occasional tick of the clock on the living room wall. My husband, Tyler, was snoring heavily beside me, oblivious to the way I kept tossing and turning. At 26 weeks pregnant with twins, sleeping had become nearly impossible. Every time I tried to roll onto my side, a sharp pain shot through my lower back, and I could feel the babies shifting restlessly inside me as if they were practicing some chaotic dance routine. I sat up, wincing, and rubbed my swollen belly. "It's okay, little ones," I whispered, hoping they could somehow hear me. "We're fine. Mommy's just tired." There was no response, of course, just more uncomfortable flutters and a little kick beneath my ribs. I slid my legs off the bed and shuffled toward the kitchen, my movements slow and awkward. Walking felt like I was carrying 2 bowling balls strapped to my waist. I made a cup of tea and sat at the small dining table, staring at the dark window while the kettle clicked off behind me. Outside, Columbus was covered in frost, the streets empty, the world perfectly still. Inside, though, my mind wouldn't stop racing. I thought about how we'd gotten here. Me, exhausted and alone in my own home, while Tyler slept like he didn't have a care in the world. When I first told him I was pregnant, he'd been ecstatic. He wanted a child so badly, even begged for it, saying things like, "We need someone to carry on the Carter name. Someone who'll look up to me." I thought it was sweet, even a little romantic. But when the ultrasound showed there were 2 babies instead of 1, something inside him changed. The excitement faded almost overnight. Instead of kissing my belly like he used to or calling me his beautiful Sophia, he started making little jokes, mean ones. He'd pinch the extra weight on my hips and say, "Careful, babe, you're gonna roll away on me." Or he'd laugh when I waddled across the room and mutter, "You look like a penguin." I tried laughing along at first, telling myself he didn't mean it. But as my body changed and my energy drained, those words started cutting deeper. Tyler still expected a spotless house, hot dinners on the table, and his shirts ironed to perfection. If I complained about being tired, he'd just shrug and say, "You're pregnant, not dying. Every woman goes through it. Stop acting like it's a miracle." Sometimes I'd go to the bathroom and cry quietly so he wouldn't see me. I used to think we were in love, but lately I felt more like live-in help than a wife. The sad part? I kept telling myself it would get better once the babies were born. Maybe he'd hold them, see their tiny faces, and fall back in love with me. But deep down, there was this knot of fear I couldn't untangle. What if he didn't change? What if he stayed distant, or worse, walked away? I sipped my tea, slowly blinking back tears. The warm liquid didn't comfort me the way it used to, and I suddenly realized I hadn't heard a kind word from him in weeks. The clock on the wall ticked toward 3, and I knew I wouldn't be sleeping again tonight. So I rubbed my belly once more, whispered goodnight to the babies, and promised myself something. No matter how lonely I felt, I wouldn't let them see me break. I wasn't always this tired, heavy, or afraid. There was a time when my life felt wide open, full of choices and hope. I grew up an only child, raised by parents who were older than most of my friends' moms and dads. My father was a history professor at the local college, the kind of man who loved dusty books and quiet evenings. My mother worked as an accountant, careful and precise, always balancing every penny. They were gentle people, never yelling, never fighting in front of me, the kind of parents who believed in solving things over tea instead of shouting matches. But by the time I turned 19, everything had changed. My dad had a stroke and passed away suddenly, leaving a silence in our house that no one could fill. My mom tried to hold on, tried to keep me focused on school and the future. But cancer doesn't care about timing or effort. She was gone within a year. And just like that, I was alone. I sold the house to pay for her treatments, leaving me with little more than a scholarship and a suitcase. I moved into the university dorms, telling myself I could handle it, but the truth? I was lonely. I poured myself into studying English because it was something I loved, something that made sense when nothing else did. To cover my expenses, I put up an online ad offering English tutoring, affordable rates, patient teacher, flexible schedule. That's how I met Tyler. He was 28 at the time, already working as a warehouse manager, but struggling with his company's new international clients. He needed the basics, enough to hold a conversation without looking foolish. When he first showed up for lessons, I was nervous. He had this confident way of walking into a room, like he owned it. He smiled easily, asked about my day, and even paid more than I charged, saying, "You're worth it, Sophia. You're helping me more than you know." I remember blushing, not used to that kind of attention, especially from someone like him. Steady job, nice car, all the things I didn't have. Our lessons turned into conversations, and our conversations turned into dinners. Tyler would tell me I was smart, that he admired how I kept going even after losing my parents. He made me feel seen at a time when I was invisible to everyone else. I thought, maybe this is what love is supposed to feel like, safe. 6 months later, he asked me to move in. He said things like, "You don't need to live in those tiny dorm rooms anymore. Come home with me. Let me take care of you." And I wanted that. I wanted to belong somewhere again. We married quietly a year later. Just a courthouse wedding and a dinner with his mom, Martha, afterward. I didn't have much family left to invite, and he didn't seem to care for big celebrations anyway. I told myself it didn't matter. That love was what counted, not a fancy ceremony. At first, married life felt good. Tyler liked that I cooked and cleaned, and he'd sometimes bring me flowers or tell me how lucky he was. But little by little, things shifted. He started questioning why I still wanted to tutor, why I kept meeting friends from school. He'd say, "You don't need all that. I can provide for us. Just stay home, babe. Focus on me." It sounded sweet until it started feeling like a rule instead of a suggestion. I stopped tutoring. I stopped going out with classmates. Eventually, I stopped doing much of anything except keeping the house perfect for him. Looking back, I can see how it all happened so gradually, how love turned into permission and permission turned into control. But at the time, I thought I was just being a good wife. The first year of marriage felt normal enough. I told myself it was just two people learning how to live together, adjusting to each other's habits. But looking back now, it was an adjustment. It was control, slowly taking shape like vines wrapping around me before I realized I couldn't move. It started with small things. Tyler didn't like it when I spent too much time texting old classmates. "Why do you even need them?" he'd ask with a laugh. "You've got me now. Isn't that enough?" I thought he was joking until one day he grabbed my phone, scrolled through my messages, and said he didn't like me talking to guys from my English program. Next came the tutoring. He said it wasn't worth the effort, that strangers coming in and out of our apartment made him uncomfortable. "I make enough money for both of us," he said. "Why wear yourself out? Just focus on the home." I quit because I thought that's what good wives do. They support their husbands. Even the holidays felt different. My friends invited me to a winter break party, and Tyler frowned. "You don't need that crowd. We can have our own fun." So I stayed home, curled up on the couch while he played video games. One by one, my connections to the outside world disappeared, and I didn't even fight it. I told myself, this is marriage. This is what commitment looks like. His mother, Martha, only reinforced it. She'd call once a week and say things like, "Sophia, don't argue with him. Men need peace when they come home from work. Just focus on the house and starting a family. That's what keeps a marriage strong." She meant well, I think, but it only made me feel more alone. Then came the pregnancy. When I first showed Tyler the positive test, his eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. He lifted me in his arms and spun me around. "I'm going to be a dad. Sophia, this is the best day of my life." For a brief moment, I believed things were going to be different, that he'd soften, maybe even treat me like his equal again. But then we had the ultrasound and saw 2 little heartbeats instead of 1. Twins. I still remember the way his smile faltered, how he went quiet on the drive home. That night, he barely spoke, just stared at the TV while I tried to process what it meant to carry two lives inside me. From then on, every little thing I did seemed to annoy him. If I was too tired to cook, he'd complain. If I left laundry for the next day, he'd mutter, "What do you even do all day?" He hated how slow I moved, how big I'd gotten. He joked about my swollen ankles and the way I waddled, calling me Penguin like it was a nickname I should laugh at. I cried a lot during those months, though I hid it from him. I'd stand in the bathroom, hands braced on the counter, staring at my reflection and whispering, "Just hold on, once the babies come, he'll love you again. He'll see what you went through and appreciate you." But deep down, something in me already knew the truth. I wasn't his partner anymore. I was a piece of furniture, useful when needed, invisible when not. And yet I still clung to hope because what else did I have? No parents, no close friends, no income. Just Tyler and the life I thought we were building together. I didn't realize then that life had already started to crack, and it wouldn't take much for it all to fall apart. It was late December, just a week before New Year's when it happened. I'd been restless all morning, looking at the smudged windows in our apartment and thinking about how I wanted the place to look nice before the babies came. Tyler had brushed me off the night before when I asked for help. "I've been working all week, Sophia. I'm exhausted. Can't you handle one thing on your own?" So I tried. I grabbed a stool, a bucket of warm soapy water, and a rag. My belly felt enormous, but I told myself I could do at least the bottom half of the window, just enough to feel like I'd done something useful. The stool wobbled as I reached forward, and for one terrifying second I felt weightless. Then came the crash with hitting tile and a sharp pain in my back as I landed awkwardly on the floor. My breath caught in my throat. Then I felt it, a sudden warm rush between my legs. My water had broken. Panic set in immediately. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking, and called Tyler. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Still nothing. "Come on, Tyler, pick up. Please." My chest tightened and tears blurred my vision. I scrolled through my contacts, meaning to call a neighbor, but my fingers slipped. I didn't even see which name I hit before I pressed send. "Hello," a man's voice answered. It took me a second to place it. David Miller, Tyler's boss. My voice came out broken. "David, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to call you, but my water just broke and I can't get a hold of Tyler. Please, I need help." There was no hesitation in his response. "Stay where you are. I'm on my way." Minutes later, David appeared at the door, his face full of concern. He didn't ask questions, didn't waste time judging why his employee's pregnant wife had accidentally called him instead of her own husband. He just scooped up my hospital bag from the hallway closet and helped me to the car. At the hospital, everything moved fast, too fast. Nurses rushed me into a delivery room, hooking up monitors and starting IVs. "You're early, sweetheart," one of them said gently. "But don't worry, we're going to take care of you and those babies." I gripped the side rails as the contractions came, sharp and relentless. "Where's my husband?" I gasped between breaths. No one had an answer. I sent another text, then another, but the screen stayed blank. No response. Hours later, I held two tiny boys in my arms, their little chests rising and falling with effort. The nurses whisked them away to the neonatal unit, and I lay there, exhausted and numb, wondering why Tyler hadn't shown up. David stayed in the hallway the whole time, pacing like a worried family member. When the nurse told him he could step in for a moment, he just smiled at me softly and said, "You and the babies are safe now. That's what matters." I wanted to cry from gratitude and humiliation all at once. This man, practically a stranger, had done what my own husband wouldn't. He showed up. He made sure I wasn't alone in one of the scariest moments of my life. As they wheeled me into recovery, I clutched my phone, staring at the unread messages I'd sent Tyler, and whispered to myself, "Were you? How could you not be here?" I didn't know it then, But this was the moment everything between us would shatter, because when I finally did go home, I'd find out exactly where he had been and why he hadn't answered. 3 days later, I was discharged from the hospital. The twins were stable, but small, tucked safely in their car seats that looked far too big for their tiny bodies. My arms ached from holding them, not because they were heavy, but because I didn't want to let go. They felt fragile, like porcelain, like something I'd been trusted with but didn't quite deserve. David was there again. I hadn't asked, he just showed up saying, "You shouldn't be driving in this condition, Sophia. Let me help." I wanted to protest, to say I could manage, but the truth? I couldn't. I was sore, weak, and emotionally drained. We pulled into the apartment parking lot, and I noticed something immediately. Tyler's truck wasn't there. I told myself he was probably at work or running errands. But when we stepped inside, that illusion collapsed. The living room was half empty. The TV stand was bare, no flat screen. The shelves that once held his sports trophies and framed photos were stripped clean. In our bedroom, his dresser drawers were open and empty, closet hangers swinging slightly like they'd been disturbed in a hurry. Even the cheap watch I bought him last Christmas was gone from the nightstand. I stumbled back, clutching the doorframe for balance. No, this can't be real. My mind scrambled for explanations. Maybe he moved things because we were remodeling. No, that made no sense. Maybe there had been a break-in, but there was no sign of forced entry. Then I saw it, a single sheet of paper on the kitchen counter. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The handwriting was rushed, almost sloppy, like he couldn't get out fast enough. "Sophia, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Don't try to find me. We're getting a divorce. Tyler." That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just a few cold lines to end our marriage. The paper slipped from my fingers, fluttering to the floor as if even it didn't want to carry his words. My knees buckled, and I sank into a chair, clutching one of the baby carriers to my chest. Why? Why would you do this to us? To them? The twins stirred, one letting out a tiny cry, and I rocked the seat gently, tears streaming down my face. David picked up the note, silently read it, then set it back down without a word. He didn't rush to comfort me or tell me it would be okay. Instead, he crouched beside me, his voice calm and steady. "You're not alone, Sophia. Not anymore. I'm here and we'll figure this out." That broke something in me. I'd been holding everything in, every insult, every lonely night, every fear about the future, and now it poured out. I sobbed uncontrollably, clinging to my baby's carrier like it was the only thing anchoring me to the world. David waited, patient, letting me cry until the waves passed. Then he asked gently, "Do you have anyone else you can call? Friends? Family?" I shook my head. "No, it's just me now." He nodded slowly, like he understood more than he said. "Then you focus on your boys, Sophia. Let me help with the rest." For the first time in days, I felt something other than fear. It wasn't happiness, not even relief. It was the smallest flicker of safety. And yet, beneath it, the grief was sharp and raw. I had just given birth to 2 beautiful boys, and their father had walked away without even seeing them. That night, while the babies slept in their bassinets, I sat on the couch, staring at the note again. I whispered to myself, "I guess it's just us now, just me and them." And for the first time, I truly believed it. It was a week later when the phone rang just past midnight. I was sitting in the nursery, rocking one of the twins who refused to settle. The other slept peacefully, his tiny chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. My body ached, my eyelids heavy, but the sound of the ringtone jolted me awake. I glanced at the screen. Tyler. My chest tightened. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the answer button. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let him vanish completely like he wanted. But some stubborn part of me hoped for an apology, maybe even an explanation. I answered, "Tyler." His voice slurred. "So, you moved on already, huh? With Miller? That your big plan, Sophia? Get knocked up and then cozy up to my boss, I froze. What are you talking about? You left me, Tyler. You left us. He laughed, a cruel, sharp sound that made my stomach turn. Don't play innocent. I know what's going on. Everybody does. You think I don't know how he looks at you? You probably sent that text on purpose. Pathetic. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. You're drunk. Call me back when you're sober. No, you listen. His voice rose, distorted through the speaker. You ruined my life. And guess what? I'm doing just fine. Better than fine. I've got someone who actually appreciates me, and I've got plans. Big ones. You tell Miller to watch his back, because by next month his precious company's tech? Yeah, it'll be in my hands. I'm selling it. Making real money, Sophia. While you sit there with your brats, living off pity. My blood ran cold. Tyler, what did you do? He laughed again, slurring over his words. Relax. Just business. Nothing you'd understand. Oh, and by the way, that apartment, my name's on the lease. You've got a month to clear out, or I'll have you evicted. The line went dead. For a moment, I just sat there, stunned, the baby's soft breathing the only sound in the room. Anger bubbled up, hot and shaking. It wasn't enough that he abandoned us. He had to threaten our home too? And now he was planning something against David, the one person who'd actually been there when I needed help. I didn't even think. I called David immediately. He answered on the first ring, his voice alert despite the late hour. Sophia, is everything okay? I told him everything. Every cruel word, every drunken threat, the scheme to sell company secrets. When I finished, there was silence on the line, heavy and deliberate. Thank you for telling me, David finally said. I need to take care of this immediately. You don't have to worry. But, Sophia, I'm sorry you had to hear that from him. I swallowed hard. It's not your fault. I can't believe he would do something like this. David's tone shifted, firm and commanding. Believe it. People like that always think they're smarter than everyone else. But he won't get away with it. True to his word, within days David's company launched an internal review. Security teams dug through access logs and project files. And then they caught him, Tyler, along with his new partner, trying to meet a buyer in a parking lot with stolen schematics. The police arrested them on the spot. When the news reached me, I sat quietly on the couch, staring at my boys sleeping peacefully in their bassinets. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a dull ache of finality. Tyler had chosen this path all on his own, and now there was no coming back. I whispered to the babies, it's just us now, but we're going to be okay. I promise. The weeks after Tyler's arrest were a blur. There were lawyers, calls from the police, and paperwork I'd never imagined having to handle alone. And through it all, 2 tiny babies depended on me for everything. 2 little souls who didn't care about betrayal or broken marriages. They just wanted warmth, food, and love. I was exhausted, running on caffeine and adrenaline, but there was no time to fall apart. I had to find a way to provide for us, to build a life from scratch. So I went back to what I knew best, teaching. Only now it was virtual. I posted online ads for English tutoring, using the only resource I had left, my laptop. Within a week, I had my first few students, people working from home who needed help with grammar and business conversation. It wasn't much money at first, but it was something. And every dollar felt like proof that I could do this on my own. David noticed, of course. He noticed everything. One afternoon, he dropped by with a car seat base for my second-hand sedan. You shouldn't be struggling to carry both carriers in and out every time, he said with a soft smile. Another time, he handed me a list of local clients who needed English tutoring. People from his company who wanted evening lessons. I mentioned your name, he explained. Only if you're comfortable, of course. I didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever gone out of their way for me like that. Not even Tyler, not really. David never hovered, never acted like I owed him anything. He'd stop by, help install a baby gate, or drop off diapers when he noticed I was running low. And then he'd leave, giving me space. Somehow he understood I needed to stand on my own, but he also wanted me to know I wasn't alone. His daughter, Chloe, loved coming along too. She was 8, sweet, and endlessly curious about babies. "Can I hold one?" she'd ask every time, and I'd smile and say yes, watching how gently she cradled their tiny heads. She called them my little brothers, and something about the way she said it warmed a part of me I thought had gone cold forever. There were still nights I cried, mostly when the boys refused to sleep and the weight of everything felt crushing. But slowly I started to see a future. Not perfect, not what I had once imagined, but ours. A future I was building with my own 2 hands, fueled by every ounce of determination I had left. One evening, while folding laundry at the kitchen table, David leaned against the doorway and said, "You know, Sophia, you're stronger than you realize. Most people would have broken by now." I laughed softly, shaking my head. "It doesn't feel like strength. It just feels like surviving." He stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "Surviving is strength. And you're doing more than that. You're building something new." I looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time I let myself see what was in his eyes. Not pity, but respect and maybe something more. I pushed the thought away. I wasn't ready for that, not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I went to bed that night feeling like life wasn't just something happening to me. It was something I was shaping piece by piece for me and my sons. And I knew one thing with certainty: we weren't as alone as I once feared. It happened on a chilly spring afternoon, one of those days when the sun looks warm but the wind cuts straight through you. I had bundled the twins into their stroller for a walk, thinking the fresh air might lull them to sleep and clear my own head. The park near our apartment had a small lake with a narrow paved path running along its edge. I'd walked it dozens of times without issue, but that day I wasn't paying attention. I was texting a student to reschedule a lesson, pushing the stroller with one hand, when the front wheel caught on a raised edge of the path. The stroller jolted forward. One of the diaper bags swung loose, and for a terrifying second, the stroller tipped. I lunged, grabbing it with both hands, pulling it back upright, my heart hammering. "Whoa, careful!" I turned, breathless, to see David jogging toward me. He had that same concerned look I'd seen the day of the premature birth, like the world could fall apart at any moment and he'd hold it together if I couldn't. "You okay?" he asked, already checking the boys, who were fine, startled but fine. I nodded, embarrassed. "I'm fine. I just wasn't paying attention." David crouched beside me, tightening the strap on the bag and testing the wheels of the stroller. "You don't have to do everything alone, you know. It's okay to need help sometimes." I wanted to snap back, to tell him I was handling it, but the truth was written all over me. Dark circles under my eyes, shoulders tense, a pace of life that hadn't let up since the day Tyler walked out. I bit my lip and looked away. We walked back together in silence, him matching my pace, his hand occasionally steadying the stroller whenever the path got uneven. When we reached the apartment steps, I finally said softly, "Thank you for everything. You've been there more than anyone ever has." He shrugged slightly. "You don't have to thank me. I'm just doing what's right." But then he hesitated, his hands in his pockets. "Sophia, I need to say something, and I need you to hear me out. No pressure, no expectations." I froze, still gripping the stroller handle. "Okay," he took a breath. "I care about you. Not because I feel sorry for you, and not because you need someone. I care because of who you are, because you keep going, even when everything falls apart. I want to be in your life, but only if that's what you want to." The words hung in the air like they were too big for the space between us. I blinked, unsure if it was exhaustion or fear or something softer that made my chest ache. I don't know what to say," I whispered. "You don't have to say anything right now," he replied quickly, a small smile easing the tension. "I just needed you to know." We stood there for a long moment, the only sound the soft breathing of the twins in their stroller. And for the first time since Tyler left, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Possibility. When he finally walked back to his truck, I stayed on the porch, staring at the sky turning orange over Columbus, whispering to myself, "What are you so afraid of, Sophia? You deserve to feel happy again." I didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time I wanted one. A year can change everything. The twins are walking now, wobbly steps that make me hold my breath every time, ready to catch them if they fall. They babble constantly, calling out for Mama, and occasionally trying to copy Chloe, who loves teaching them new words. Chloe has become like an older sister, hovering proudly over them as if they were her own brothers. My tutoring work has grown too. What started as a handful of online students has turned into a full schedule, with enough income to cover rent, groceries, and even start a little savings account. I no longer worry about where the next dollar will come from. I built this life with my own hands, piece by piece, and it feels solid, like it won't crumble no matter what. And David, he's still here. We took things slow, just like he promised. He gave me space to heal, never pushing, always respecting my boundaries. But somewhere along the way, I stopped looking at him as the man who helped me when my husband abandoned me, and started seeing him for who he really is, kind, steady, and fiercely loyal. One evening, after the twins were asleep and Chloe was working on a school project at the kitchen table, David and I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the city skyline. I remember turning to him and saying, "I don't feel scared anymore." He smiled softly, reached for my hand, and replied, "Good, because you don't have to be." We're dating now, officially. It's not a fairy tale where pain disappears overnight and love fixes everything. Some nights, I still wake up thinking about Tyler, about how quickly someone you trust can betray you. But then I look at the life I have now, my children's laughter, Chloe's gentle hugs, David's quiet strength, and I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. As for Tyler, I heard through the grapevine that he took a plea deal for corporate theft and left Ohio after serving his sentence. He hasn't called, hasn't tried to see the boys, and to be honest, I'm grateful. I don't want his chaos anywhere near the life I'm building. Sometimes I think back to that night, the fall, the panic, the text I sent by mistake. If my hand hadn't slipped, if David hadn't answered, I don't know where I'd be. Maybe still trapped in a marriage that was killing me slowly, or worse, completely alone, believing I wasn't worth more than scraps of affection. But life has a strange way of guiding you, even when it hurts. When I tuck the boys in at night, I whisper, "We're okay now. Mama's got you." Because it's true. We're not perfect, we're not rich, but we are safe, loved, and happy. I used to think I needed someone to rescue me. Now I know I rescued myself first. David just reminded me it was possible. And sometimes when I stand in the doorway watching my little family, Chloe reading to the twins while David laughs at their attempts to mimic every word, I can't help but think, all of this started because I sent a text to the wrong person. The wrong number. That saved my life.